We're traveling from city to kind of smaller town, and then we're going to end up in Yanun, which is a village. So the wall is being built by Israel as a security measure to keep Palestinians from being able to access Israel. But here we are standing. Behind me is Hawara checkpoint. People are walking out of Nablus, and this is the area we would spend a lot of time monitoring what the soldier activity was, making sure that they were treating people decently. And I was taking photos, trying to, if there's photos and cameras present, then the soldiers are more likely to treat people with more respect. Half of the population lives in these houses in Lower Yanun, and then the other half of the population lives in Upper Yanun. So we can go inside. So I can put our stuff on. As a human rights observer, we are meant to be present. We are meant to bear witness to the injustice that is happening. We are walking alongside both Israelis and Palestinians that are willing to take a risk for peace. And in this case, I was living in a village with just 100 people who live in constant threat. Their daily lives are underscored by this threat from the settlers that live up above them. I spent a lot of time with this family, parents Najiha and Kamal, and they have 6 kids, and they are working every day to just make a life for their children, just as any American is trying to make a life for their children. What really struck me during this time was just the poverty that they're living in. What I realized is that poverty that they're living in, it's not their own fault. Kamal has wanted to work, but since Israel closed off the borders around the West Bank, he hasn't been able to be a day laborer in Israel. Every day they make bread and bake bread, and so it's a central part of the daily life. It's eaten with every meal, and so it's really neat for me to get to participate in making the bread and baking the bread, and just to be part of the daily life with them.
We fear for the children, fear to leave the village and go work in Aqaba. Even if you're fortunate enough to find a job, you're constantly scared for the children.
Karin
and the presence of other foreigners reduce the pressure from the settlers. If the settlers come down to the village, the International has the power to take out his camera and photograph them. We can't do this. As for our work, when we go down to the olive and almond groves, we go in fear. It is dangerous. However, Karin and her group come with us to work, even though they are scared as us.
Karin began sending back emails, just a sort of a way of keeping in touch and reporting. And those emails would be a combination of her reflections on daily life in Palestine and on some of the people she was meeting, along with pictures that she was taking.
In a lot of ways, photography is critical because the places we're talking about are so far from the reality that people know here. And photography, photos, are a window into these different people's lives, and especially faces, and getting to see not just a place, but actually seeing the people that are living there.
The mission of the Baker Institute is to try to understand war and organized violence as human problems. And I think Karin's work and her thinking will go a long way toward giving us a better understanding about war's human problems.
They aren't actually living on the land, but they have these people living on the land to maintain the land.
The service and peacemaking scholarship at Juniata College made all the difference in the world for Karin. She wanted to go to one of the places that was most remote and where people were finding, in fact, the most difficulties. And she was willing to deal with the risks that were involved in being in a place, in a small village, in a remote corner of the West Bank.
It says a lot about Juniata that they are willing to put the money forward for an award like the Service in Peacemaking Scholarship. Because without that, I probably wouldn't have come to Juniata. And without that, I wouldn't have been in a financial place where I can, after graduation, just move abroad and start this kind of work.
We met Karin last year, and she's been coming here and helping us. I consider Karin to be one of my daughters. I always feel like she is one of my daughters.
My work in the village of Yanun really solidified my understanding of the conflict, and I have a pretty good understanding of the complexities and the hardship. My passion for justice and human rights isn't limited to a region, but it encompasses all of humanity, and I want to affect change wherever change is needed or wanted.